Okay, class, welcome back to the biological basis. This is the 5th video in the brain series. This is covering pages 80 to 88 in the Myers textbook. I believe it's probably on pages 11 or 12 in your packet. The big three things that we're going to talk about are aphasia, brain plasticity, and hemisphere specialization. So now that we kind of have the parts down in the last series of videos, let's kind of talk about some specialized areas that control certain behavior. First thing I want to talk about is aphasia. Aphasia is when there's an impairment of your language, and there's several areas that are crucial for language development in your brain. Damage to any one of these several cortical areas can cause problems with language. Okay, so the first one, the visual cortex, helps receive written words as visual stimulation. So you're actually visualizing these terms on the PowerPoint. Another area is the angular gyrus, which is then it would pass to the angular gyrus, which transforms visual representations into audio cord. So gyrus is part of that middle brain that we didn't spend too much time talking about, but the gyrus helps transform visual representation into the auditory code. Once then it goes to the auditory code, it's going to go to the temporal lobe, specifically the larynx area, which interprets your auditory code that you're receiving. Then the Broca area, which we talked about, is in the left frontal lobe, controls speech and the ability to speak. And then the last one, 5, would be the motor cortex, then the words are actually produced. Another thing that's pretty incredible is your brain. Your brain it's called brain plasticity. So it's the ability for your brain to reorganize after it's been damaged. So we talked about the cerebral cortex, which is on the exterior portion of the brain, responsible for higher functioning. What they noticed is you can remove some of that cortex if, let's say, there was a problem with it or was damaged, and the brain can compensate and put other areas to work. So if I were to remove this portion, the brain is going to reroute itself because of brain plasticity, and kind of fix the problem on its own, so it's going to rework those wirings. Obviously, it's going to be easier to be done if you're a younger child, but adults have had portions of the brain removed, and it's kind of like the brain plasticity is to reorganize all the neural activity. Neurogenesis is the formation of new neuron cells, so they're finding new neuron cells are produced that help reorganize the brain. Yes, we do have what they claim is a cerebral dominance. You're not just left and right brain, meaning that you only use, like if I'm a right brain person, it doesn't just mean that I'm going to use my right half of the brain. You do use both of the hemispheres, while both sides of the brain rely on the other half. Each hemisphere, however, of the cerebral cortex does have specific functions. It's called hemisphere lateralization or specialization. So if you're known as, yes, your right brain or your left brain, you might be more dominant in one of those. However, you do need both of them in order to regulate your behavior. The left hemisphere controls muscles and speech. We talked about the Broca areas there. It controls a lot of your sequence of movements. It helps with the speaking and written vocabulary. It helps with memory of words and numbers, and it helps understand speech and writing. So they also say that the left hemisphere is a little bit more logical, more organized, versus the right. Regulates your emotion, responds to simple commands, memory for shapes and music, interpreting spatial relationships and visual images, and also helps with the recognition of faces. Okay, so like I said, the right hemisphere also kind of contains your artistic ability. The cerebral cortex, specifically, we talked in the last series about the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum helps send information between the two hemispheres back and forth. So this is something that I do want to talk about. It sends messages between the two hemispheres, so you rely on both of them. In order to send messages back and forth, you need this kind of bridge. What they noticed in years past, patients have had, with severe cases of epilepsy, the messages were having problems sending back and forth between the two hemispheres. They could be treated on what was called as the split brain procedure. In this procedure, they literally cut the brain in two by cutting the corpus callosum, and they removed it, technically. Okay, Roger Sperry, Ronald Myers, and Michael Gunzinga pretty much did this operation where they removed it on people, again, who were very critical, having a lot of terrible seizures. And what they found is it pretty much split their brain in two. For these patients, life changed very little on the surface, with the exception of far fewer seizures. However, put under certain circumstances, the side effects were very clear. I want to point out your right hemisphere sees stuff in the left field of vision, okay, and your left hemisphere sees stuff in your right field of vision. Your right hemisphere also controls the left side of your body, and the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body. So some of the stuff that they saw was the following. So he asked, in early experiments, Gunzinga in 1967 asked his patients to stare at a dot as he flashed the word heart on the screen. Thus, he appeared in the left field of vision, which transmits, we know, to the right hemisphere. Okay. Art is in the right field of vision, which transforms to the left hemisphere. When he was asked what they had seen, the patients said that they had seen art. But when asked to point to the word with the left hand controlled by the right hemisphere, they were startled when he pointed to he. Okay, so what word did you see? Obviously, speech, okay, is controlled in what hemisphere? So if she's seeing it in her right field, that's being transmitted to the left hemisphere, and the left hemisphere is responsible for production, word production, so stating what they saw. So she saw art. However, when they asked to point with the left hand what word she saw, okay, well, when you're pointing with the left hand, it's controlled in the right hemisphere, so she would say what she saw in the right hemisphere, which is he. Okay, and we are going to spend some time in class reviewing the right and left dominance and how this procedure or how this experiment actually took place. Okay, and that will do it for the presentation on pages 80 to 88. Aphasia, brain plasticity, and hemisphere specialization you will have to be responsible for. We will review the split brain procedure in class.